Thank you, Karen. So I want to acknowledge the emotion in the room, the emotion that happens when we celebrate Mother's Day and we light candles for our moms who have made transitions, and then we light candles for our dads who have made their transitions. And, you know, regardless of our relationship with our parents, there's this incredible connection that's there and this incredible emotion that moves in and through us whenever we are grateful, whenever we recognize that they are the face of God. And so I just want to acknowledge the feeling that we're having and experiencing right now in this room as we celebrate Father's Day. So I was researching the origins of Father's Day, and it actually began in Eastern Washington, of all places. The first Father's Day happened on June 19th, 1910 in Spokane, Washington. Yes, so we're responsible for Father's Day in the state of Washington. A woman by the name of Mrs. Dodd wanted to acknowledge her father because he was a Civil War veteran, but more than that, he had 6 children, and the 6th child, his wife died during giving childbirth to their 6th child, so he raised 6 children on her own. And when she grew up, she realized what an amazing feat that was and how kind and generous he was and what a great dad he was. And she thought, you know what, we need a day that acknowledges that. And so that's how we ended up having Father's Day. So on this day, we are not only honoring our human dads and our stepdads and our foster dads, or anyone who has served as a father figure in your life, but we're also honoring the Father God energy today. And that is the energy that is protecting, the energy that is providing, the energy that is guiding, and that kind of holds us in that loving, protective space. So we open to that today. We call that in. And I think also we open not only to the Father God, but to Daddy God. As Jesus referred to God when he prayed, he called God Abba. He called God Daddy. And up to that point in the Old Testament, God was Jehovah. You know, God was this God that you didn't know what he was going to do. You know, he was very temperamental and he could strike you down at any moment. So, you know, there was a little bit of scariness when it came to God the Father. And so what Jesus did is he brought it to a different experience when he not only referred to God as Father, but God as Daddy. And so that brings in this feeling of just not only this providing, protecting presence, but this loving, personal God as well. So we call all of that, and we acknowledge all of that today. We acknowledge our dads. And I also want to acknowledge on this Father's Day the male energy, the father energy that exists in this community. When I was initially hired as the senior minister, I had a couple of men come to me and say, you know, Karen, I'm not really sure if I can handle all this feminine energy that's in the church. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that or how I'm going to handle that. And what I have seen happen in this community is that our men have stepped up to take incredible, not only leadership positions, but the men in this community have stepped forward with that providing, protecting, caretaking energy and have taken care of this building in this community, haven't they? So I want to acknowledge how our men have come together. Our men have come together as chaplains. They've come together in the men's group, taking care of the chapel and saying, you know what, we're going to build an altar and we're going to paint the ceiling and we're going to seal the bricks. And I just love how men can fix things, you know. You guys are amazing. How you can just sort of walk in and something's fixed, and I can't figure any of that out. But we've stepped forward. The men in this community have stepped forward as ushers and greeters and chaplains and community leaders. And so I just want to say thank you and how grateful I am, and also how much this community needs you. Not just this community, but all communities needs that father energy, that protective spirit, that male energy stepping forward. And I know that, was it last weekend or the weekend before, where the men, because they were auctioned off at the auction, they were auctioned off as a gaggle of men who would go and do some work for 4 hours. And I think there were 14 of you guys, or 13, and you ended up digging a French trench and painting a deck, or anyway, there's pictures of that. There's one of Carrie who climbed into the trench, and it looks like he's laying in a grave. Anyway, it's just, and I know that they're also having a great time with all of that. So besides Father's Day and honoring the dads, this is also the month that we're honoring the spirit of creativity and in the manifestation of our dreams. And the main focus today is about passion and how passion fuels our dreams. And Karen Drucker is going to be leading us in a workshop at 1 o'clock about passion and fire. And the truth is that passion is that desire that says yes. It's that inner yes that you get. Passion is the fuel that ignites the creative spark that's within us. And I'll tell you, without passion to ignite that creative spark, it kind of can be drudgery, can it? I mean, life's like, oh boy, all this I have to do. So what I want to talk about is what that passion is in each one of us, because the passion is that thing that's inside of us that says, yes, I want to do that this is fun and this is exciting for me. And the thing that is important to know is that just because something is your passion doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to earn your living off of it, right? And the thing is, it shouldn't matter, because when we give ourselves over to our passions, when we say yes to those things that excite us and turn us on, then it ignites the rest of our lives. And then we can go do our jobs, and we can show up as parents, and we can do all the other things that we have to do, because we're allowing that spirit of fire to be ignited by the passion that we are saying yes to in our lives. An example, when I was 16 years old, the girl sitting next to me in English leaned over and she said, "What's your sign?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about." And she said, "Well, what's your birthday?" So I told her, and she looked up and she says, "Oh, goody. I knew that you were," I was a Virgo, but she said, "I knew you were because I'm a Virgo and I knew I liked you for a reason." And I was like, okay, what? You know, I don't know what you're talking about. But you know what was interesting to me is there was an inner yes inside of me. There was something in me that was ignited that said, I want to know more about what she's talking about. And I couldn't stop reading about astrology at that time. And at a very young age, I learned to speak and read astrological symbols in the astrological language. Now, is it how I earn my living? Absolutely not. But it's one of my passions in life, and it's something that I, as a hobby, like to pursue, and something that I like to explore, because when it feeds me, which then feeds the rest of my life. So I'm asking you, what is that thing for you that says yes? And maybe it's golf, maybe it's singing, maybe it's yoga. It doesn't have to be anything that's connected to how we earn our living. Yeah? So what is that inner yes in you? And do you let yourself do it? Do you let yourself go, yes, I'm going to do this because it's my passion in life, and as long as I'm having that passion fed in me, then I can go on and do the other things that I'm here to do. The other passion that I have had in my life for most of my life is God. I've just always loved God. I've always loved God. And from singing hymns to praying to doing all that stuff. And when I was young, many of you already know that I used to live in a yoga ashram in my mid-20s. And I found unity kind of through serendipitous events. I didn't exactly sit down and go, I think I'm going to be a minister. I think that's what I'll do with my life. I never actually sat down and thought that. But I ended up at Unity Village, living there, and I saw the whole ministerial program, and I thought, well, you know, why not? Well, the problem is I never actually joined a Unity church. I never actually became a member of a Unity church. I did take the classes and the other things that you were supposed to do. And so I applied for ministerial school, and at that time it was very competitive. Like, there would be like over 100 people who would apply, and they would only take 30. And I did not fit any of the qualifications for ministry. I just didn't. And so one of the things that we had to have on our application was a recommendation letter from our minister. Well, I didn't have a minister because I didn't really have a church. So what I thought I would do is I would pick the big church in town, and then that way the minister would go, oh, it's so big, I don't know who's here exactly. Probably not a good way to start a ministerial career. So the minister's name was Frank Judici. It was at the Unity Village Chapel. So he calls me up and he says, Karen, you put me down as a recommendation on your application, and I have no idea who you are. So you need to come in and you need to talk to me. So I came in, I met with Frank Judici, and he says, look, I got to tell you something. I see a lot of people come and go through here. I've seen a lot of ministers, and I got to tell you, you're not minister material. Not at all. And, you know, I don't really know you, and what I've seen of you, you're too quiet. So he said, I'm going to write that on your letter. I said, okay. So he wrote it on my letter, and I still got invited for an interview. I don't know how that happened, but I did. And at that time, we were interviewed by, it felt like a whole room full of people, like 20 or 24 or something. And they would question us about metaphysics and God and whatever. And I think what the committee saw was my passion for God. And I knew at that moment, or even before then, that I was dedicating my life to God, and whether it showed up as unity or something else, I was hoping it was unity, but I knew that God would provide a different avenue for me. And I think what the committee saw, even though I didn't meet all the criteria that I was supposed to meet, was that they saw that I had this incredible passion and love for God and for people and for community. And so I was accepted into ministerial school in 1982, and I have to tell you, there were a lot of people that were not happy about that. Because when you have 100 and some applicants, and then this person shows up out of nowhere and gets in, it's like, who do you know? And it's like, you know, God, I know God, I guess. I don't know.